Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for our first direct live to the field webinar. I would like, and we would like as MSF Australia, to acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to the elders both past and present. This land was and always will be Aboriginal land. In recognition that we are a binational association, I also take this opportunity to say kia ora to our colleagues across joining us from Aotearoa, New Zealand. My name is Jackie Clark and I'm a recruitment officer with MSF Australia. Tonight's webinar aims to provide you with information about life in the field with MSF. I'd like to introduce Lou Cormack. Lou's done multiple missions with MSF and is currently working as a project coordinator in Afghanistan.
Hi everyone, nice to be with you all here today. I'm in Afghanistan, joining you from my messy bedroom, so I apologise for the background. Here's Jackie and I pre-recorded an interview together in the same location, so to have some continuity.
Yeah. No, thanks Lou, that's great. So this is the first time we've run a live webinar talking directly with a field worker while they're in the field. Usually we do it once they've returned. The reason why we made a pre-recorded video, the one that you're about to watch, is because often internet connectivity is unreliable. And if we happen to lose connection, what we'd have to do is just continue with the phone or not at all. It's just the reality of working in the field. So we'll catch up with you, Lou, after the video. If anyone watching would like to send through any general questions during the discussion, please go to the MSF website, YouTube, or the Facebook page. And please note, we're unable to answer any questions about your individual availability or suitability tonight. If we run out of time to answer all your questions during the webinar, we will do so afterwards. So let's watch the video now. So Lou Cormack has worked with MSF in Kenya, Sierra Leone, Liberia, South Sudan, Lebanon, Bangladesh, Yemen, currently in Afghanistan, and actually I think there are a few other places she's worked too. This is a long way from working as a Jillaroo in the Hunter Valley of New South Wales, droving in outback Queensland, maybe working as an expedition leader in remote islands in the Philippines is not so far. But now you're in Afghanistan, Lou, maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi Jackie, thanks very much. So yeah, Afghanistan as the field coordinator is quite a long way from sort of my upbringing in rural Victoria in South Australia, and I spent my 20s farming and then have gone on to, as you said, expedition leading and things. And so now it's been, I think, 9 years with MSF and 10 missions. It's quite a big a big change since then.
Yeah, it really is. And what can you tell us about your current role?
So I'm currently the field coordinator in Afghanistan in Host province. We run a maternity hospital here, and it's a big maternity hospital. We have we are currently delivering about 2,000 babies a month for complicated deliveries here. We have a hospital with 450 staff that's been running for the past 10 years. So I'm part of a big team as we provide maternity care to the host community.
Yeah, so you're managing that 450 staff?
Well, I'm the field coordinator, so I'm in charge of operations and security management. But there is a big team who manages this hospital this size. So I'm kind of guiding things along and work with everyone to keep us all on track.
Yeah. And so I think what's interesting is just to point out that you're not medical,
no.
That you're managing as you say, the operations and security.
Yeah.
So being non-medical, what are the skills and the strengths that you bring to keeping this project working on a day-to-day level and functioning well?
Yeah, it's a good question because it is a medical organisation, but like any hospital in any part of the world, you have your medical activities, but then also you have all the auxiliary and support services that go into that, including logistics, HR, finance, supply. All these things have to be considered when running a project. And so MSF doesn't only require medical profiles. My background is that I'm a farmer, and I've also got a Bachelor of Business, which is with a focus on strategic management. And surprisingly, that segues very well into MSF, because I've come from a background where I'm used to running a business in a remote, resource-poor setting. If you have a big hospital like this, it's really about management skills. They don't need me because my background is logistics, and they don't need me because I know how to fix a pump or a generator or something. They need me because all the moving parts of this hospital need management skills rather than technical skills. So it's really interesting how your skills from your life and your life experience will still adapt very well to running a medical project, or to support running a medical project in some strange place in the world.
Maybe if you could tell us about the team. Now you've got national team, Afghanis that you're working with who are really critical, and you've also got the international team. So if you could just tell us a little bit about the national team in the first instance.
Yeah, sure. So whenever you go and work in an MSF mission, you have usually got a small expatriate team who are coming in, and we're working with a big national staff team. And it's this national staff team that keep the hospital running. They do the care, they keep us safe, they support us, and MSF would achieve nothing without all of its national staff team. So, for example, we have here an international team of 10 people, but our national staff are 450.
Yeah.
And they are the ones that keep this hospital running. And international staff come and go, but these teams are incredible, and they're the ones that sort of provide all this medical care that MSF is able to sort of give around the world.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, they're also, they're providing the security, they're making sure there's food, that there are supplies, that the vehicles are running, the myriad of different things that they do just keep the project working.
Yeah, and it's also MSF, in the way that we work through a method of acceptance rather than protection, in that we have a no-gun policy, and so we don't go anywhere unless the community accepts us and wants our services there. And we then employ that community, and that community provides healthcare to its own members. And it's a really vital part of how we successfully give the medical services.
Right. So trusting the team feeds through to the communities that you're serving, that you're providing medical care. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the international team, you said there were 10. What countries are they from?
They're from all over the world, actually. We've got people from South Americas, Brazil, Mexico. We've got me, the Australian. We've got a Romanian. We've got a Danish team member. We have Tunisian. Who else have we got at the moment? I think not so many Europeans at the moment. We've got a Rwandan team member. So it's a real mixing pot of all these amazing people who have come from all parts of the world, where they're all and have joined MSF because they've got a bit of a passion for the work we're doing. And so you end up with these amazing multicultural teams. Yeah. It's a lot of fun, quite tiring sometimes, and there's a lot of it can be quite challenging sometimes because you've got such huge cultural differences, but overall it's really rewarding to sort of work with all these people.
In an MSF house, I've heard about some places where no one says anything until the coffee's hot and everyone's got their coffee. Have you heard about that, or how does it work where you are at the moment?
Yeah, you do end up becoming like quite a big family, and you all work out everyone's quirks. And so very much coffee is a big important morning ritual, and if you're the first one up, you put the coffee pot on so that everyone can have a cup of coffee, because that generally makes it a much more cheerful breakfast room. And you learn everyone's quirks, and you know that there'll be the people who get up early, and then there's the people who get up late, and there's people who don't make it to breakfast at all, and you won't see them until lunchtime, and you just sort of, and it's usually sort of quite a caring sort of environment. I've always found that sort of you'll end up sort of looking after each other and getting the coffee on in the morning.
Yeah, right. So if a care package arrives, people share it around, especially if there's some chocolate.
When everyone comes to the mission, it's really important if you come to a mission to bring chocolate, cheese, and little goodies like that. And you just put it into the communal fridge and everyone eats like crazy for the next sort of few days. And then you go on to no cheese and chocolate for a while. Right. We had a bit of a coffee crisis here. I've just got back from my holiday in Dushanbe, and I had to come with 12 packets, a bag of like 12 packets of coffee, cheese, salami, all sorts of things. It was a 10-kilo box just of goodies so that the team could have a bit of a feast.
And how long did they last?
All the cheese and stuff has already gone, but the coffee, we have a bit of a coffee supply crisis in Afghanistan at the moment. So I'm hoping that the coffee will last another couple of weeks until we can find another source. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty bad.
And what about food? What's the typical meal that you might have at the moment?
So we've got cooks, and most MSF missions will have cooks. I think the only place that we didn't have a team cook was in Lebanon, because we had such a level of freedom and we could go out and do our own thing. But it's pretty standard that you would have a house or a compound team, and that includes cleaners and cooks. And you'll get lunch and dinner usually provided. And the point of that is because you're going to come here and you're going to be working really hard. So we don't want people losing energy over domestic things. And so we've got two lovely cooks here, and they make us lunch, and it's like a mix between Afghan and sort of more Western sort of dishes, as they've learnt these recipes over time, and lots of salads and rice and beans. We're very lucky. Afghanistan food is delicious. But sometimes you go to places and it's beans and rice, rice and beans, beans and rice, rice and beans. It can get a bit dull.
Right. So where was
Afghanistan's good.
Afghanistan's good. Okay. Well, we'll stick with that. And I'm just noticing the background where you're calling from today. So is this your own room?
Yeah, this is I wanted to find a place where I wouldn't get interrupted. So I'm sitting in my bedroom, and you can see my wardrobe and hopefully not my underwear.
And so you get to have a room to yourself, and do the other, so there's 10 of you all living together in the one house?
So what we have here is a compound, and it varies a lot between project to project. Host Project is a really lovely compound. We each have an individual container, and we have our own bathrooms, and this is not standard by any means, and so it's quite a pleasure. In Afghanistan, we have a very high level of restriction on our movements. And so we spend, our expat compound is inside our hospital compound, and we really don't get out very much. So there's been a lot of effort put into the compound.
Right. So is the hospital quite close? Is it within the compound? Like if you have a call out in the middle of the night, how far is it to get to the hospital?
We are in one compound. Our compound is essentially one city block. And we have a small compound inside that. And so if you were called out during the night, you would go out of our little expat compound, and then you'd walk maybe 30 metres into the hospital compound. So it's very close. Right.
So that's good in one way. It's quick to get to work, but I imagine needing to take a break, is really, really important. So I believe you just had some time off in Tajikistan?
Yeah, I did. So we have a pretty strict holiday policy in MSF because of this need to make sure you rest. And it's not the best holiday policy, to be honest, out of all of the humanitarian organisations, but it's every 3 months you go and you must take generally like a week off, but it varies a little bit according to which country and the level of restriction you're living under. And it's really vital that you go and take that just to remove yourself away from this environment where you're constantly on call. And it often ends up with quite some fun opportunities to go and visit countries in the area around where you're working, and you get some really nice opportunities to visit places that you wouldn't necessarily get to. It's a little bit difficult at the moment with COVID. Travel restrictions are are quite difficult, but it's I've got to go to Tajikistan for, I think it was 11 days, and it's a beautiful country, so I really enjoyed myself.
Can you tell me about the national staff, not just where you are right now, but, in other missions, and what kind of a difference they've made to your experience? What was kind of special about that opportunity to work closely with people from a different culture?
I think the national staff for me are one of the greatest pleasures and privileges of working for MSF. They're people who are working within their community, and they're extremely brave. They're often working in the most horrific circumstances, whether it's conflict or if it's an outbreak or whatever it is. They're really quite extraordinary, and they are so generous as well to us as international staff coming in. And it's also a really big privilege to come and work alongside them for months at a time, because you get an insight into their community and culture that you wouldn't get just as a tourist. I'm a terrible tourist. I hate being somewhere just like for a week or something. I really love to come and work alongside people. And so you very quickly realise when you get to a big project that communities have got all the same elements all over the world, and you come in and you work with these team members, and it's really challenging, especially for them, because you can imagine what it's like to have a new manager every 3 to 6 months coming in, a new personality to get used to, and not everyone's easy to get along with, and they are really gracious and patient about it, which is extraordinary. And they face, if we look at, we've got 100 midwives in our hospital, and just day in, day out on their shifts, they are facing sort of up to 60 deliveries a day, and they just do it day in and day out. They're incredibly strong, and they are a really important part of MSF.
One of the challenges being for the expat staff who come in and just want to work so hard is to remember the national staff, the local staff are doing this year in, year out. And to make sure that they look after themselves and take time for normal life.
Exactly. And it's and that's where us coming in and working for these short periods of time, we have a much higher workload, but that is to protect them. That is our role, is to link them with the bigger MSF system, and also to support them and make sure that they don't burn themselves out because they get overloaded with work. And it's also to provide them with a layer of protection, because as you can imagine, a national staff member is quite vulnerable to pressure from the community or pressure from authorities. And so as an international staff member, if we take that, we provide a buffer between the national staff and all the pressures of the community and the context that you're in. And it's really important for international staff to remember that we have that duty towards them, and that we are here to support them, because without that big team of national staff, we're not going to be doing anything.
Yeah, can well understand that.
Yeah.
Just thinking back on your career, Lou, do you sometimes sort of take a moment and feel a bit surprised that you've ended up working in Afghanistan and Bangladesh and Yemen when you were out in the paddock droving sheep?
Absolutely. It's a bit surreal sometimes. Not necessarily. My qualifications suit the field coordinator role, so that's not necessarily it's not necessarily sort of what's surreal. But sometimes I look at if I think of me as a farmer with my Bachelor of Business, and then some of the projects that I've worked in, and like building a hospital in Lebanon, and then running a maternity hospital in Afghanistan, and working in really high security contexts, or and just I look at them and I think, if I applied for this job in Australia, first I'm not sure that I would apply for it because it's a bit crazy, and I would never have thought that I would be appropriate for this. But then it's amazing once you learn MSF and you learn how we work, how much you can do and what we can achieve. It is quite amazing sometimes.
Yeah, I guess, just for anyone listening, it's just good to know that, it's not a straightforward pathway. There's no set background, particularly with non-medical, I think, to working with MSF. And so, you know, those twists and turns in your careers that might seem a bit strange in Australia can fit really nicely in the MSF world.
And life experience is extremely valuable. I think it's really important to remember with MSF is that MSF is not a training organisation. Then we don't want people to come and have to learn how to learn their role. We want you to come and learn how to run a medical facility or a medical activity. And so your life experience and all the weird and wonderful things that you've done throughout your life just really become an asset when you're coming, and you can apply those to working in a project. Yeah, it's really valuable.
Really, lastly, Lou, I just wanted to say that, you know, I often hear from MSFers, they love working with MSF because every day is different. You never know what it's going to bring. There's a certain adrenaline that comes with it, but it also takes a lot of energy and resilience to do the job well and to look after yourself and to keep coming. You know, waking up every morning and applying yourself to dealing with the problems of the day, the joys of the day too. But I just wondered, what is it that keeps you coming back to doing this kind of work? You said, you know, you've been in 10 missions.
Yeah. I think what I is that the work that you're doing is you never doubt like that whether what you're doing is needed. Like it's something for me. I'm working something where I feel really passionate about it, and I know that I'm helping people, and that really it gives me a lot of energy to keep wanting to do it. I also you have to be quite disciplined to make sure you do self-care, to make sure that you don't burn out. And I have in the past sort of pushed myself too far, and I've had to take time off to go back, but I've always wanted to come back. And I think and when you're in the project, you're never bored. You might be exhausted, you might be frightened, you might be furious, you might be having a great time, but you're never bored. There's always something to do. And it's also, it's good just to be realistic about the work that you're doing, is that sometimes it sounds really glamorous and sensational, and I'm in Afghanistan, oh my God. But then the reality is that I spend a lot of time answering emails and dealing with HR issues. And it's really like there are some very mundane aspects to this work, but it's just it is such important work, and we are really helping people, and so just it gives you the energy and the drive to sort of want to come back and do it again and again.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time just to tell us a bit about the everyday of life in the field. And I know it varies a lot across missions, but it's great to see where you are right now and your beautiful wardrobe, Lou. But yeah, look, all the best for the next few months, and yeah, thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thanks, Jackie. Good to speak to you.
Tonight, we're not going to go through the recruitment criteria. This information is available on our website and on recruitment webinars available there. Instead, we'd like to give you the opportunity to talk with Lou about life in the field. I'm sure you'll understand that she's unable to answer any questions about the current political situation in Afghanistan. Hi, Lou. Thanks for joining us this evening, or morning as it is for you.
Typical Zoom problem, I'm on mute. Morning, Jackie from Afghanistan. Really nice to be here with you all. I think I've made some little videos so that everyone can have a bit of a look inside the compound here in Afghanistan, just to give you a bit of a sneak peek in what we're living in and what life's like here for us in Afghanistan specifically. Here's the MSF compound. That's the dining room in there, in that container. That's the main entrance, and then you come into a glorious garden full of roses. We have a gardening team because we're all locked up in here in this hospital compound all the time. That's the gym. That's my room. And then if you come through, kitchen dining area, laundry, incinerator smoke in the background.
Then you come back to the second half of the compound. Here's the safe room. So if anything goes wrong, we go and dive in there. Trin doing yoga on the shelter, the other side of the dining room. And then keep coming around. There you go.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Lou. It's a bit special to be able to see from Australia, to see exactly what life can be like there. Now I have a question from Mary. What do you do between assignments? You've done 10 missions. How do you kind of manage that transition?
Yeah, so for me, I'm doing work full time with MSF. I really enjoy it, so I've decided to just keep working. And so whenever I take a break between assignments, I really have to make sure that I go and get some rest, because to work long term in these kind of contexts really does take its impact. So whenever I finish an assignment, I make sure that I go and do something which really helps my recovery and mental health. Like I love to go for long hikes for a couple of weeks or things like that. Then I also make sure that I get home and I reconnect with friends and family, because it's a long way from home when you're out in the field, and culturally it's extremely different. And so you really have to make sure you make an effort to get home and reconnect, and maintain those relationships and connections, as well as getting rest.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't look after your own community, you can't help others with theirs. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We have a question from Michael. What would you advise someone who's just finished their uni degree?
Mm-hmm.
So the key thing is we'd need to know your background, but it's definitely getting some practical work experience, management experience is really, really important in the field. And we look forward to hearing your specific situation if you contact us directly. Lou, there's another question for you. What would you pack every time you go on assignment?
That's a good question. It very much depends on where you're going. Probably the first rule is don't pack anything you want to bring home in good condition. And then also, check what climate you're going to and what kind of project. If you're going to a bush project, you'll probably spend months in jeans and an MSF t-shirt. If you're going to an urban project or especially a Middle Eastern project, then you have to actually dress well, which is a bit of a shock to the system. So you really need to sort of have a look at where you're going. If there's anything specific you need to sustain yourself, make sure you bring it. So, for example, I know quite a few Italians who cannot survive without coffee, so they have their little mocha and their packet of coffee, and they get up in the morning and ensure their survival. Any specific, also medications, like if you have a specific type of medication or multivitamin or something, those sort of things can be really hard to get. So it's
music, entertainment,
that sort of thing. So your personal computer or a personal sort of device of some kind, so you can sort of chill and relax and watch movies or something. Yeah, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I guess some people bring their yoga mat.
Yes.
It just really depends on what you need to kind of be able to relax and have some downtime, given that it's really hard to source things when you're away. But then at the same time, usually there's, a 15 to 20 kilo limit on what you're allowed to take.
Yeah. And often if there's, in the security rules, if there is you have an evacuation plan and you'll only be able to take out 5 kilos. So keep that in mind. With everything that you're taking, it might not be able to come home.
Yeah. Usually you just end up wearing the same couple of T-shirts and pants over and over again, and you'll wonder why you worried so much before you left.
I lived for a year out of a carry-on bag, so you don't need much, to be honest.
Yeah. You get a bit preoccupied with more important things. It's still a good question. Now I have one for you, Lou, from Robert.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you come across as very immersed and confident. Did it take a few missions to feel like you were hitting your strides, or were you able to feel you were making your best contribution from your very first mission?
That's a really good question. It does take a while. It takes a while to learn MSF and to learn how the system works. But I do think, even from my first mission, because you are contributing to an activity and you are helping patients and things, so you do feel like you're contributing. But certainly, as time goes on, you get more and more confidence, and you're able to sort of adapt to the new place quicker, and it's sort of, yeah. I'm probably much more effective now than I was when I first started. But having said that, still every time I go into a country and you do your handover and then you get given the phone and you suddenly have this moment of like, what am I doing here? How am I going to be able to do my job? But I think that's healthy because it shows that you're aware of the sort of the work that's ahead of you.
Yeah, that's spot on. Yeah. Okay, now we have another question for you, Lou, from Dominic. Do you come across many big egos in your work?
Yep. Don't fall into the trap of thinking all humanitarians are good people. And there is the whole spectrum of personalities that you work with, both within MSF and in the places where you work, and depending on sort of your day and sort of how you're feeling, it's sort of also like sometimes, like, I'm sure people find me a bit ridiculous at times, so you certainly do. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, it's MSF is just like everywhere, as you say. Yeah. Okay, well, we don't have any more questions from the audience. I'd like to just say what an enormous thing it is for you giving up this time in your incredibly busy schedule, Lou. We really appreciate it and wish you all the best for the remaining months of your placement.
Thanks very much.
I'd also like to, thanks. I'd also like to say to the audience, thanks for your participation. Thanks for tuning in. We really hope you found it interesting. Don't hesitate to contact us with any questions that you have. We're looking forward to seeing your applications. And on our website, you can find the process for applying and a lot of information about recruitment. Any remaining questions we'll respond to offline. So thanks, everyone, and good night.